single, pregnant, and a member of Congress. California Democrat Linda Sanchez, made news with her recent announcement she's expecting a baby. Although she's in a serious relationship, no wedding plans are in the works, making her the first unmarried woman to be pregnant while serving in Congress. I sat down with her to discuss why she and her partner decided to go against social norms and put baby before marriage.
Well, everybody's situation is a little bit different. Mine, I've been in a committed long-term relationship with someone. We've been discussing marriage and engagement. We had been. And then I went for my annual exam, and my gynecologist talked to me because I had expressed an interest in wanting to have children. It's something I've always wanted to do. And she said, well, if I were you, I wouldn't put it off. You should start immediately on that project to avoid things like having to do fertility treatment. So discussing that with my partner, we decided to go ahead and move forward with that first, because the window of opportunity was rapidly closing, and decided to, postpone the marriage and wedding part of it until later. This is our singular focus right now.
Now, tell me about your family's reaction, your constituents' reaction.
Well, interestingly enough, it's been very positive from constituents, and I think that's because they know the work that I do in the district. They see me in the district quite often and know that I'm a passionate advocate for the needs and concerns that they have. My family is thrilled. I come from a large family of 7 kids. My mother has 3 grandchildren, and she's been bugging us for grandkids, and I think she had just probably about given up on me when I had met Jim and things looked like they were going in a very positive direction, and so she's thrilled.
How have your colleagues in the House responded?
Everybody's been very supportive, I've been particularly seeking out a couple of the female members who also themselves gave birth recently to get advice on preparing for the birth and handling responsibilities of the job after birth, because that's also going to be a big component, is learning to balance working life with being a mom. And I know that thousands of women, hundreds of thousands of women do that every day in this country. And so I know it's difficult, but I know it's not impossible.
And this is a very tough question, but allow me to ask it, please. Have you thought about teen pregnancy, unwed pregnancy in the Latina community?
Absolutely.
Have you thought about that they will take you're an incredibly credentialed, accomplished woman, so do you think your young constituents will think, well, she did it, I can do it?
It's really interesting that people would even compare the two situations, because I think they're vastly different. One thing that people seem to lose in the whole mix of this was very much a planned pregnancy. I have the financial wherewithal and the emotional wherewithal to be a mother. It's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And it's a very different scenario than being a teenager who hasn't finished high school, who has no job or career. And for some reason, people want to equate the two things. I think there's worse role models than to say to somebody, go to college and successfully complete that, go to law school, get elected to Congress when you're 33 years old, blaze trails in the Congress, and wait until you're 39 to get pregnant with your first child. I don't think that that's, being a bad role model. I think it shows planning and timing considerations, and I think it shows something that's a well thought out plan. Well, I think it's an incredible teachable moment. That's why I talk about it. I could just decide not to say anything, but I think it's important that young adults understand the ramifications of their actions. And my hope is that my message gets out, particularly to the folks in my district, although across the United States. And one of the things I think can help is responsible reporting of my situation versus that of an unwed teenage mother. As far as movie stars are concerned, I think probably if you polled the youth of today, most of them don't know who the Vice President of the United States is, much less their member of Congress. So I think if you want to talk about the impact that movie stars have on youth, I think it's 100-fold bigger than that of who their elected officials are. And that's not to diminish elected officials. We work hard, but we just don't have the same kind of celebrity.
And in terms of the historicity of you are making history. You're the first, and women are running out of first. Is that what you want as your legacy?
Well, it wasn't something that I sought out and said, gee, this is an area where I can really be, the first on this. But if you look at governments around the world, women in much higher position in Europe and in Latin America have children and are not married. It doesn't impact their ability to do their job and serve their countries well. And
Bachelet in Chile.
Absolutely. And, I think that there are still, some very strong stereotypes about, working mothers and about marriage that I think, we need to sit back and evaluate and say, look, if this person does their job and they do it well and they're serving a constituency well, the fact that they're not married and they have children doesn't make them a bad person.
Tara Setmayer, I first want to thank Congresswoman Sanchez for having done this, because as she said herself, she could have hid in the corners and not. She's been very media friendly on this topic. So regardless of whether one supports her decision or not, you have to admire her as a human being. But given all that, your thoughts?
Well, this is disappointing to me. I'm the product of a single parent. My mother was a single parent until I was 15, and there's nothing glamorous about single motherhood. And just because she decided she has the wherewithal financially, she makes $174,000 a year, that's great, but her circumstances are not what the normal unwed mother's circumstances are. She's
well, let me
the
ask
norm.
you this. Do you agree with her that kids can make a distinction between that this was planned on her part and she's where she is in her life and their own situations?
No, I don't think that that's the message that we should be, I don't think we should be glorifying that, or that she should make that distinction. When did fathers become dispensable? They're not. And the fact that she's making a decision, well, we're going to get married later. Well, to me, it's concerning, because kids nowadays, they don't make those distinctions. Fathers are important. The statistics show how difficult it is emotionally, regardless
of quickly, because we are running out of time.
I admire her. This is not the same. This is not about single parenting. She's not going to be a single mother. She has a partner. She plans to marry the partner. It's about the order in which she's done things, and she's documented, and she's been open to talk about responsible behavior. And we live in a free society where people can marry or not married to have kids, and they can still do a responsible job. And she's saying she's doing it.
I wish her well. It's a hard road to get down, even with a partner. With that, I was married and then divorced and then married again, and it's a tough job. So I wish her well. I do have to agree, though, that I don't think kids will make the distinction. We try. I mean, at least my kids won't make the distinction. I'm trying to get them to distinguish on a lot of things, and they really tend to select what works for their argument at any given time and apply it to the situation to rationalize what they're doing. That's been my observation, and so I am afraid that even if she doesn't want that to occur, that it will occur.
Well, my point is, if this was Congressman Sanchez, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And there's a dual standard for men and women in politics.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that, Amy.
I don't think
we
it's
would
fair.
certainly want to be interviewing the first guy in Congress to father a child
You
out
missed
of
that
wedlock.
one, because I'm sure there's been plenty.
But the problem is, and we saw this in the 2008 election, the way Secretary of State Clinton and then Governor Palin were treated, much different. Not only them, but their children and families are held to a different standard. And that's why we have such a shockingly low representation of women in government. That's why we're 84th in the world in the recent IPU study that just came out.
And how does that play into?
Women are concerned about running for office because they're treated so harshly and judged so harshly in ways that men are not.
So you're saying that. I'm saying not a guy like Strom Thurmond, who may or may, apparently
I'm saying this is out of.
I'm talking about a guy who openly decides to have children with a longtime partner first before marriage.
I think this is out of bounds, and I think talking about this type of thing discourages people when you bring in their personal life into running into office, and that's why we have such a low representation of women.
Quickly, Tara.
It's part of public life. She made that decision. She's openly talking about it. So we have every right to have an opinion and to scrutinize it. And I think absolutely, if it were a man the other side and having the same discussion, that I would be just as outraged, because illegitimacy is damaging to children. Studies have shown it, and this is not something that we should be glorifying by any means.
All right, that's it for this edition of To the Contrary. Next week, demand surpasses supply at the nation's food banks. Please join us on the web for To the Contrary Extra, and whether your views are in agreement or to the contrary, please join us next time.